Hello, dear partners. Let's give a minute for a few others to join, and then we'll get started. Maybe like another few seconds. Maybe we're already 9:31 here. All right, I think we can get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, based on where you are. My name is Vinish, and I'm part of the Arcserve product marketing team. I'm excited to talk to you about Arcserve N Series, our hyper-converged data protection solution. For those of you who know us, Arcserve has been delivering solutions longer than most players in the market. We started sometime 1983. It is super important to choose a vendor who has a broad and deep experience delivering solutions in the data protection domain. Data protection takes years to perfect, and we have nearly 40 years' experience offering best-in-class solutions. We serve over 100,000 customers in 150 plus countries and over 10,000 MSPs with hundreds of petabytes under management. Arcserve is a global top 5 data protection vendor and unified data resilience platform provider. Arcserve has more product width and depth, placing it in a unique proposition to cater to a variety of solution engineering needs. Arcserve solves a variety of business and technical use cases. And remember, for customers and for everyone, this comes from one vendor as opposed to 5 or 6 vendors, right? And that is why it is very important. Right from backing up files directly to cloud, or immutable storage on premise, or providing complex high availability solutions for enterprise applications, or a hyper-converged scale-out data protection appliance, what we're going to talk about today, right? So all of this, Arcserve has all of it under its umbrella. So here is a single vendor offering the right solution to protect entire environments on-prem and in the cloud from data loss and ransomware with integrated cybersecurity. So before we talk about Arcserve N Series and some of the new models we recently announced, let's look at some challenges faced by customers. Backup data storage. How is that a challenge? You should have already heard about explosive data growth, unstructured data growth challenges posed by specific data types and others, right? But haven't possibly heard about the challenge with backup data itself. As the volume of backup data increases exponentially, storing and accessing this data, meeting retentions to support compliance, being recovery ready, and being cost effective long term is a major challenge. Silos continue to be created due to various reasons, from ones that genuinely require a backup silo to cases where organizations have severe challenges managing it like any other data, and others who haven't yet realized it as a challenge. When the backup storage cannot perform better or the system is about to reach its max storage limit, the typical recommendation is to add another server, add more storage, add more RAM or CPU, etc. Customers are often put into tough situations, requiring critical decisions to be made owing to the challenges managing the backup infrastructure and, importantly, the backup data. Should we divide the backup onto multiple systems? Backup to the newly purchased system and maybe let the older data die in the old systems? Is that an option? Can we let it do it? Can we do that? Or should we disrupt operations for a significant change in backup strategy? Or use a less disruptive, more costly approach? Right. So these are some of the questions, really a very few of the questions that are on customers' minds. So more systems mean more maintenance. Every new machine added to the backup environment requires added IT time to maintain software licenses, upgrades, updates, and patches, as well, and hardware maintenance. In short, it means more tedious, time-consuming tasks for an IT staff that is probably already stretched thin. An increasing stress due to uncertainty for the IT staff involving too much complexity, right, to handle multi-backup infrastructure systems. Of course, the ransomware issue here as well. We talk about ransomware attacking production data. What about backups? If they are spread across multiple silos, an antiquated model, right, an antiquated ransomware model like a spray and pray technique, that itself can do a lot of damage. Conte, infamous strain ransomware, is still active, and we continue to hear it keeps attacking backup data. I'm hoping you see how additions to a non-scalable backup environment means increased workloads, complexity, and stress. So as we saw in the previous slide, more of something doesn't make a better platform. Organizations are troubled by extreme workload dynamics. So in order to manage fluctuations in the workloads, they look at platforms that offer a variety of fundamental elements in the best presentation, or say a unified way, so they can artfully manage the application scenario. AI ops, DevOps, and traditional IT operations all have an impact, or directly involved in culling older applications and bringing in new applications. We know why. This causes a massive cycle within the company where they need to manage the older applications, the data, the app life cycle, obviously backing them up more than before, given the decommissioning plans maybe. Right? So meanwhile, the new apps start to gather data, present new challenges, etc. So sum and substance, the ecosystem that produces the data is by itself in an ever-changing mode. So it should be evident that the impact is to be borne by the IT to help manage without disrupting operations. It is important to note that backups and systems in the protection ecosystem also present a case for unpredicted data growth and a workload nature seen as fluctuating. A strong IT leadership is emerging across the globe, to meet the ever-changing technical and business needs. The reason for the change is due to massive difficulties managing different and sizable components of the traditional IT infrastructure stack. Traditional IT stacks are well known to offer a full freedom of choice, right? We all know that. Flexibility to employ varied combinations, to use, that matches an organization's need and others. But all of this comes at a cost. In a typical traditional infrastructure stack, you can expect full responsibility for managing, deploying, securing, purchasing individual stack elements like servers, storage, network equipment, and others. IT personnel or other designing members in the organization are fully responsible, for selecting the right components, managing the interconnectedness of these components, possible integrations, compatibility of the parts that make up the stack, and others. After this, individual component updates, active maintenance needs, replacement management, and others, right, etc. So multiple parts, multiple management needs, and importantly, multiple vendors. So a high chance of overspend or in some cases underspend. You understand how budgets work, and needless to tell you the challenges associated. Organizations almost regularly have to deal with multi-point failure, management headaches, severe cost climb, and more. So people and process contribute heavily too. And needless to tell you, the time that each one of us have, right, to spend on innovation, especially when you have to think of replacing a traditional IT stack with something else, right? It's not that we cannot innovate, but it's that we do not have adequate time on our hands. The traditional system keeps people busy with high chances of disrupting a complete flow, even if they want to make one minor change. Okay, now that we have looked at some of the drivers and challenges, let's look at some key themes or areas in the technical and business space that attempt to address one or more of these challenges that we just talked about. Data resilience, in a broad sense, means an availability-oriented approach. Now, because it is foundational, we architect systems, applications for availability. Therefore, it is natural to expect data inherit this property. You see some familiar Arcserve product icons in there, and I use them to show how they talk to an availability aspect, and especially for always-on businesses. Case in point, data resilient offerings have evolved, meeting specific challenges that have come their way, studied their offerings, expanded use cases, and adapted to a changing application or workload or data landscape. Good news, right? As it can independently solve several challenges. However, new generation platforms to support scale, performance for such a data resilient offering is needed, correct? Let's look at another important software defined approach, that is making waves, and that is called hyperconvergence. In a traditional or non-converged architecture, individual components are selected and stacked, like servers, storage arrays, and networks. In the previous section, we talked about the traditional infrastructure challenges. It's a multi-point failure with severe demands, including matching components, even like even adapter cards, right? So they're compatible with the stack being built, etc. Also, a need for more storage might result in adding other components in the stack, without which performance might be impacted or could cause other issues. As you can see, not the best from a backup storage perspective, as it will continue to grow with ever-changing demands requiring scale, and not just scale, remember, consistent performance at scale. What Hyperconverged does is that it combines physical servers with locally attached storage systems and puts a software layer on top of it to manage. It should be evident to you that with software, technically the options are unlimited, which means you can expand at will, etc. Right? That is why with a hyper-convergent system, scalability, resiliency, availability, and to a good extent, security can be achieved. The distributed platform expands seamlessly with node addition. Now, isn't this a great set of attributes we are looking for from a backup storage, data protection, and management perspective? Nutanix has exactly that. With Nutanix objects, you can use all of the HCI or the hyperconverged infrastructure attributes like scalability, resiliency, availability, security, and others. Now, this is still the platform, but offers an optimized, validated approach to backups that would like to use it to support expanding environments with unpredicted data growth. Cybersecurity, I'm sure you understand why proactive responses are a must to deal with ransomware attacks. So securing the backup systems is critical. What you see here is a critical set of capabilities expected from a leading cybersecurity vendor, Sophos, to suit backup protection needs. Arcserve N Series, our hyper-converged data protection appliance, is a complete offering for customers who face the challenges we talked about. Our hyper-converged data protection appliance combines technologies from leaders to offer a hyper-available recovery platform for the broadest set of workloads across physical, virtual, and cloud workloads, covering on-premise and SaaS data protection. Arcserve's hyper-converged data protection appliances are powered by Nutanix and secured by Sophos Intercept X with data protection from Arcserve UDP. And UDP stands for Unified Data Protection, our flagship product from a data protection from in the data protection product line. So a single SKU including all three technologies from Arcserve. N Series presents familiar interfaces to let customers manage workloads, monitor backups, track resources, and more. Now that's a view of the new N Series bezel. Arcserve N Series, as we talked previously, brings together critical technologies, right, from leaders to offer a hyper-available, hyper-resilient, and therefore a hyper-converged data protection platform. So needless to tell you folks about the advantages that Arcserve UDP offers via an availability-oriented approach with deep data reduction and assuring recovery. There are several powerful features well architected to serve the needs of enterprise backup, enterprise data backup protection, right? Data protection needs. Nutanix offers a hyper-available recovery platform for always-on businesses and ability to scale out incrementally and linearly, allowing customers to start small and scale with business growth. A clustered and highly available platform ensures hyper availability for backup data. Serious interruptions, to the backup environment could cause, dangerous, irreparable losses if a system is not available. If there is unplanned downtime, that by itself could cause a lot of problems. So we should expect customers to experience shorter backup windows owing to how hyperconvergence is architected to support such workloads. So that should save time and costs, unlike traditional systems requiring laborious management, laborious management needs. And of course, customers can easily manage SLAs, RPOs, and RTOs mandated by company policies, regional requirements, or business requirements with a hyper-available and hyper-resilient platform. Sophos Intercept X Advanced for Server to defend backup systems from ransomware attacks and others comes with a rich set of attributes. We looked at. So that includes, say, deep learning, neural network. They have root cause analysis. They've got CryptoGuard and WipeGuard functions, really proactive ransomware prevention techniques. They have synchronized security and a whole lot of functionality that would support the needs that we look for. So as you can see, we have data resilient platform from UDP. We have a hyper resilient and an available platform from Nutanix, cybersecurity from Sophos to say fit a cyber resilience strategy, right? All from one vendor, Arcserve. So now there are numerous benefits to customers because of the hyper-converged platform from Nutanix that Nutanix pioneered HCI, as most of you would know. For us, there are at least 4 key areas for a solution such as Nutanix platform to deliver successful outcomes for customers, for our customers, who wish to use it for data protection. And what are they? They are availability, scalability, resiliency, performance at scale. It needs to be everything and all. For example, if you have a solution with good performance for a particular load but doesn't scale, then that's bad. If a product is scalable but not resilient, then it is not suitable solution for availability focused workloads. And if a solution is resilient but not scalable, then again we have major constraints which make it unattractive, in most, if not all scenarios. A Nutanix cluster is 100% software defined, and our customers can be assured that their platform is a hyper available recovery platform. Start small and scale only when required. Seamlessly add nodes. The benefit there with this is that it's avoiding day one oversizing, thereby reducing capital expenditure. As you would all agree, right? That's one of the big major pain points with oversizing. And importantly, avoiding the ongoing operating expenditure that would be needed to maintain the oversized infrastructure. So incremental and linear scale out means customers start with a minimal set of resources and as needed scale them out while linearly increasing the performance of the system. Now let's take an example of components required for running, say, virtual workloads, right? Say servers, storage, and network. Okay, all scaled independently. So when customers scale out the number of servers, it doesn't typically scale out the storage performance. Now with Nutanix's HCI platform, when customers scale out with new nodes, they are scaling out what? They're scaling out the compute and storage performance, the capacity, hypervisor computer nodes, right? Hypervisor computer nodes, the storage controllers, the number of nodes participating in cluster-wide operations. So this results in the ability to incrementally scale storage or compute right, or compute with linear increases to performance, right? So the ability and the benefit is, and that's why there is a benefit there, to start small with consistent performance at any scale. We'll look at some critical components of the architecture later on, so that should explain how Nutanix at a very, very high level manages to offer resilience, availability, and scalability. But for now, let's think of hyperconvergent architecture contributing to it, to ensuring there is no disruptions to applications whatsoever, even if components in the hardware or software system fail. Object storage makes sure no data is lost because objects are automatically copied to more than one node. There are several advantages in Nutanix objects. Let's maybe just talk about a few. Immutability. So Nutanix objects enables customers to create write once, read many buckets to prevent anyone, that includes the administrator, from modifying or deleting data until the policy is active. So retrieved data is the same as the one that was originally stored. That's the whole concept behind immutability, right? I'm pretty sure all of you know this, but that's the fundamental, straightforward definition of immutability. So with immutability, you get a golden copy, an unaltered copy of data that's potentially not encrypted by malicious users or ransomware attacks or things like that. So users can extend retention settings, by enabling, say, object versioning or any other the functionalities that objects offers. It's a really great set of offering that they've brought to market. Then there is the data lifecycle management, right? So customers can use time-based retention policies to enforce compliance or meet regulations. HIPAA, high-tech, or anything, right? Any other such regulation that mandates retaining data for a particular period of time, right? Again, a Nutanix object feature that can be inherited. Objects also offers a FIPS 140-2 compliant data at rest encryption. This can be set at the cluster level, so the system is continuously encrypting all data stored. Now, owing to the S3 compatible nature, customers can tier objects to another S3 compatible object store, such as AWS S3 or Wasabi, using Nutanix objects as replication that claims an RPO of seconds. Customers can replicate their backups offsite. And there are many other benefits. Again, I do not wish to use the time right now to discuss all of this, but the takeaway here is that we have a very solid, strong platform that, in terms of a hyperconvergence platform, offers a lot of benefits for a vendor like us, a data protection vendor, and that is important. Let's look at some use cases, and that would give a little better picture, right? Imagine the case where an organization, let's say in the industrial sector, has deployed multi-backup system, for, say, their SCADA architecture. I'm pretty sure most of you understand that it is a very complex architecture, multiple systems pouring tons of data from different portions of the architecture. Not a very elegant or simple, I wouldn't say elegant, but not a simple one per se, but a need for some of these verticals, like the industrial verticals, to employ some of these architectures to support their needs, right? So if you have something like that and you need to protect backup, it would have several isolated backup flows, with each going into its own storage systems, and a very complex replication system with backups, replicated data, and copies almost everywhere. Consider the position of someone heading the IT division, trying to find how they could trace just a single backup of a very critical component within the system that had recently failed, or storage needs for each of the silos that contain critical backup data. There is a lifeline of the business, or for us in this instance, to make sure that the SCADA system offers the best results for the business, right? Or CapEx bloat, right, due to oversizing and the ensuing OpEx, country manager, other such challenges. This should help you get a picture of customers struggling with backup silos, backup data sprawl, and and of course, workload complexities. In many cases, they do not know about these challenges, right? People, until we meet this challenge, we don't know this. It's true as with me, as with anybody else, right? Until it meets, we're not very much, our work is to manage the business and make sure we have productive outcomes. We don't necessarily think day in and day out about such challenges. It's kind of similar to ransomware, if you will, right? But the challenge is the same. So for a customer like the one I described, right? So for an organization like the one I described, if you have such a setup, if you have a complex setup with multiple backup silos, etc., then N series is a blessing in many ways. You will have central control it'll be extremely cost effective. You know immediately on any information that pertains to the storage. Don't have to worry about unpredictable data, or for that matter, workload fluctuations. You know it can happen on one end, and you don't have to necessarily worry about its protection, right? So to a large extent, a big relief. Now, having said that, I do know that organizations work different, their needs and optimizations are different. Moving to a consolidated plan, right, might actually be not so helpful in only certain cases where there is a genuine need to keep backups in silos. But again, there are challenges in doing so, right? And I'm hoping that with such needs, such genuine needs, people are able to structure fences, guards to make sure that cyber attacks, ransomware attacks don't take advantage of such situations. So case in point, there are some real problems, big problems noticed that are not noticed in organizations, and things that are slowly people are beginning to realize. And now that we know that these problems exist, we can state with confidence that N series is a good fit for specifically these situations where you'd like to consolidate backups and leverage benefits coming out of the hyperconverged data protection appliance. Immutable and redundant backups. I'm pretty sure we talked about this in the previous section. We talked to challenges with ransomware. You'd be imagining that you need something where even if the data is encrypted by ransomware, you need a clean copy, right? A golden copy, an unaltered copy. And that's right there. You have ransomware protection for backups via the worm-enabled buckets. You also can lock the backups in an S3 bucket using the object lock functionality, right? It offers, from a solution perspective, it offers the ability to store copies in a flexible manner, right? So you don't need to worry about a sprawl, right? You don't need to look at different replicated copies, etc. Backup copies in a cluster, they are always hyper available, right? You could replicate them over for offsite protection. The case here being the ability to hold a clean copy, at the same time ensure you say follow some of those strategies like 3-2-1-1, where you're required to maintain 3 copies of the data, 2 medias, 1 offsite, 1 immutable copy. This fits beautifully right in there, right? And of course, it's cost effective for you. You can offload backups to S3 stores. You can tear them off to objects, right? Things like that makes this really cost effective, especially in the long term. If there are shops that are typically Nutanix heavy, right? We have customers who come and said, look, we need something that's familiar. We need something where we would be able to associate with these systems better. We don't need to learn something net new, right? We simply need another infrastructure that would mirror what we're doing for production, but handle this for data protection, right? Then this would be a perfect fit, where you bring in the Arcserve N Series. This has got familiar, it's the familiar infrastructure, it's the complex Nutanix production units where, that are managing, say, the Oracle database, or say some custom heavy application, multiple apps, multiple VMs, right? All that you now need to do is you need to get your backups onto the Arcserve N Series. So there is not a lot of new learning in there, right? Maybe you need to know a little bit about the Arcserve UDP, but that's really minimal. But that aside, you don't need any new learning. Of course, there are the multiple benefits with scale out and others that we talked about, right, from a hyperconvergence perspective. All right, so from the Arcserve N Series product detail perspective, I will try not to talk a lot about the architecture here, but I just wanted to give a glimpse, of how the N Series architecture looks like. So you have a view of how we say it can handle scalability, resilience, availability, and whatnot, right? So we said this, it's 100% software defined. The Nutanix cluster is 100% software defined. Each node in a cluster runs a hypervisor, and the Nutanix software runs as a virtual machine called the controller VM, CVM, runs on every node in the cluster. CVM is responsible for a variety of platform logic, such as UI, DR, storage IO, whatnot, right? Then there's a Nutanix Acropolis, which is the foundation of the hyperconverged offering. So in an expanded form, it is the Nutanix Acropolis operating system, or the AOS, right? AOS is responsible for pooling storage across nodes, distributed operating functions across all nodes in the cluster for performance, scalability, and resilience. Nutanix HV virtualization is virtualization solution, right, with functional capabilities that expand to VM placement, live migration, hypervisor conversion, and others. Nutanix objects, object storage service. This is a software-defined object storage solution that non-disruptively scales out. Very important here, right? An important portion of the architecture, and supports S3 compatible REST APIs. One of the key components of Acropolis is the distributed storage fabric, right? Again, we would love to delve more deeper if that is of interest here, but I will keep it at a very high level. Now comes the part where UDP gets involved. As you can see, there are at least two VMs, one with UDP console, RPS data store, proxy, Sophos, and another for UDP Linux backup server. If you're not acquainted with these terms, I'm happy to share more material that would support what I'm just saying. For UDP console is a management layer. RPS data store is where the backup data is stored, right? The Sophos, we talked about it, it's a cybersecurity offering, right? So that's a very quick definition. UDP Linux backup server, imagine that to be the one that handles the Linux backups, right? Of course, there is a Nutanix Prism, right? The Prism is an advanced management layer that uses analytics, machine learning, and other technologies to make things easy and streamline workflows. Let's take a quick look at how Prism coordinates. With UDP, you see the job status, alerts besides other management info that is hugely helpful in monitoring, tracking, and using data for other reporting streams. I'm sure you understand that if you get one picture of all of this, that saves a number of hours. That saves a lot of trouble with unplanned downtime, not knowing where the storage is going, and others, right? Not getting the right alerts, etc. So that's a big benefit with a management plane like Prism. Great. So let's look at the various models we have. The N series models built to fit have a 4-node minimum, up to 540 terabyte effective capacity, and up to 2 terabytes of RAM per cluster. The most interesting topic, maybe a little more pertinent for the session, is the inclusion of the N1100-4 and N1200-4 cluster models that we recently announced. The raw capacity per cluster is 100 terabyte and 189 terabyte respectively, with N1100 scale out carrying the exact configuration as the cluster. The usage models and optimizations have been considered while crafting the specs for these models. The N1100 clusters have a 2U rack size with 4 nodes built in. Hard disks worth around 38 terabytes per cluster. SSD is around 61 terabyte per cluster. Yeah, so RAM again 2 terabytes per cluster. Really rich set of specifications that are well architected, built to fit the needs of the organizations that face the challenges that we talked about fluctuating workload needs about, right? Unpredictable growth, fluctuating workload, and others that we talked about. Now, all of them offer a replication factor too, right? So let's wrap up with some key points that we consider are high value for this offering. We are the only vendor in the market to offer complete data protection with integrated cybersecurity using a powerful hyperconvergence platform to solve challenges we spoke about previously. Everything in the technical stack comes packed in a single SKU for easy consumption. When technical assistance is needed, customers don't need to contact multiple vendors, as is the case with other solutions. Arcserve technical support is a single point of contact. Arcserve N Series is the perfect solution for any organization struggling with unpredictable data growth, fluctuating workloads, and siloed backup infrastructures. I hope this slice of time has helped you get a reasonable view of Arcserve N Series. Should you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to an Arcserve representative at Arcserve. If you are a customer, please reach out to a partner, an Arcserve partner, or a person in our sales division. We would be more than happy to point you to some rich material that we would have, that we have, that can give you more details of the solution, right? So with that, let's see if we have any question and answers. I'm sorry, if we have any questions in the box. Okay, I see there is a question. Data size is ever growing. Let me read this aloud. Data size is ever growing. Can Nutanix help to reduce backup size on destination? I know Arcserve UDP can do dedupe and compression, but on hardware level, can it benefit customer? Excellent question. Thank you for asking. Yes, like for those of you who know, Arcserve UDP by itself provides wonderful data dedupe, like what you mentioned, right? We have global source side dedupe, compression, and whatnot. There are some techniques like erasure coding, compression, and others that comes with Nutanix that offers a lot of help in terms of data reduction. Now, I don't want to make this look like there's a completely net new benefit right there, but this is a consequence of using the platform, right? Like how you inherit from some of the capabilities that a platform offers. So with that, we have these capabilities like erasure coding and compression that offer a lot of help from managing data like backup data, right? The ability to manage the reduction and the ability to also make it available. Both of this together is what makes solutions like this stand out, and that is available with the platform we offer. All right, I do not see any other questions on the question box. I think that's the only question that I see. I will give back to you the rest of the time. Yeah, I still don't see any questions. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I do know that this has been a net new offering that most of you would have understood solves some key struggles in organizations. And as I stated earlier, please let us know if you have more questions, if you'd like to share anything from a feedback or suggestion perspective. With that, have a wonderful week, everyone. Wishing you the very best. Bye.